Okay, so I'm here with Coach Adam, and we always do like a little show assessment after I compete, so we're both on the same page. We go over what I did good, what I can improve on, and things to note for the future. So before we begin, I did get some judges' feedback, and it was actually really good feedback. And the reason being is, the feedback I got had nothing to do with my upper body. In fact, pretty incredible stuff. This season, I haven't gotten much criticism for my upper body, and it's definitely improved, and the judges are noticing. So funny enough, most of the criticism, I guess, or the feedback I've gotten this year was lower body related, which is really kind of funny.
Yeah, like years of upper body.
Yeah, but I mean, when I ask judges for feedback, I always preface it with, please be honest and blunt. Anything you can find, let me know, because I want to make these improvements. I don't want them to go soft on me. I want them to tell me the truth, even if it's hard to hear. So I always say that because I don't want them to tiptoe around something that I can improve on, even if it's something minor. So the feedback I got for this show was I could add a little more quad sweep. I agree. A little more quad sweep. And they also said my glute ham tie-in could have been a little bit leaner and tighter. So again, I agree with that as well. These last few shows, in fact, I came in a little bit softer than usual. Well, I guess in comparison to this year, in general, I haven't gotten as lean this year, except for the Arnold Classic. I think I was pretty crispy. But in general, this year, I came in slightly softer. That makes sense. I could definitely tighten up my glute ham tie-in. That's for certain. A little bit of upper outer glute too. So good feedback, because none of it was upper body.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing to take, is that the one thing I'm really happy about this season and this show in particular is that you are taking some risks. You know, you're coming in fuller, and that would be something that it's hard for an athlete to do, you know, especially like an athlete like you who knows you do best when you're leaner. You know, that's a hard thing to be like, okay, I'm going in knowing it's a fuller look and they really do like me lean. That's a big risk. So I'm really happy that you're taking those risks and you know, changing with the times as Bikini is getting a little fuller. And as we see here, you know, quads was never a comment we'd even hear before. You know, that was not like a thing. You'd never hear that in Bikini before. So it's cool how things evolve and how you've been able to keep up with it and how you've been able to take risks. And it's real important, I think, for not just for you to talk about it, but it's good for people to see that, like, okay, I got to try new things if I want to move up in this bikini world, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, I competed 6 times this year, and a lot of people think that when I compete just to compete. Well, I compete because I love it, but also we're learning new things with each show. We're trying something slightly different with each show, and people might not realize that looking behind the scenes, but we've got a science to this. We have reasons why we do the shows we do. And the great thing about the Vancouver Pro, it was a 2-day show. So we kind of had 2 days to experiment a little bit. And this show's experimentation was water. I really pushed the water big time with the show. In fact, before going on stage, I had already consumed a gallon of water, which before I would have been a little bit scared to do. Not that I ever cut water. That's a bad idea. However, when you are competing that day, you don't want to necessarily chug a lot of water because you get a little water belly, right? So in previous shows, I've always kind of consumed a lot of water the night before, and then on the morning of the show, that's when I start to be a little more careful with my water consumption. But this time I just freaking went for it. I woke up and I already drank like a half gallon, and then throughout the day in the afternoon I just sipped. So got in an entire gallon before walking on stage. Luckily I peed it out, but I think it did a wonders for my fullness, and that's something we learned from the show.
Yeah, another thing to mention too is the show was later at night too, and so that was another reason. So a lot of times when you're on stage, you can go flat from just not having enough water. You know, that's like one of the bigger things, even more so than just not carved up enough. It's because you cut water too much. So we knew 2-day show, 2 days late show, especially being light on water for 2 days for someone who drinks as much water as her is probably going to be a nightmare for that late of a show. If it was in the morning, I don't think it would be that big of a deal. You know, she'd have a few sips of water, get on at 9, and then just kind of sip water throughout the day and do the same thing on Saturday, no big deal, or on Sunday, no big deal. but when it's at 7 and 7, it's like, how do you manage this? And so it was kind of a fun thing to experiment with. But looking at your overall pictures, your fullness was really, really good. Do we think we paid for it on the waistline a tiny bit, just because the overall water belly? Maybe a little, right? Maybe a little.
I was tighter on the second day, I think, though.
And you had less water consumption on the second day, but the good thing is your muscles really pop still. And I think you would, if you had really light water on Saturday and then you just kind of sipped on Sunday, you would have kind of come in a little bit, a little bit flatter.
Yes.
Maybe even tightened up too much, because you did tighten up on Sunday.
Oh, yes.
Quite a bit from not having as much water. So let's go ahead and take a look at your posing routine all the way from the walkout part of it. I think is great, because even your walk, like how you're taking your time with your walk, how your hips are moving, how you're taking your time with your walk. If you look at now versus how you were doing it before, you're walking a lot faster with more spunk, but now you just slowed it down a little bit.
Right.
It's very smooth, very fluid. I'm loving the shift of the hip movement. Makes your waistline look a lot more tapered, which it is a very tapered waistline, but it makes it look even more so. You really are doing your posing routine smooth. And yeah, we haven't had any comments about your posing needs to improve for a while now. A long while we've been saying, they've been saying pretty much nothing about your posing routine. And I think it's really hit its stride. Well,
in fact, funny enough, I got complimented on it a few times by some of the judges. And honestly, I don't see it as being anything special. I think that's why the judges might like it, is because I'm not doing all this unnecessarily fluff and flare. They're probably sick of seeing girls doing like 2-minute routines, doing the same pose like 5 times. So I very much keep it simple, if you notice, in comparison to others. And I think from the untrained eye, maybe they think that's like a bad thing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. They're there to judge your best poses. They're not there to judge 5 of the same poses and then do a little dance to the back, do a little dance to the front. I can only imagine as a judge, it's probably like gets super repetitive, and they're probably just like, we just want to see the main ones. But I can't speak on their behalf. I'm just kind of assuming what I would think as a judge, especially if you see posing routines all day long. You're probably just like, okay, let's get it going, let's see the basics. Like I said, I don't think my routine's anything special, but maybe that's how they like it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and if you look at the time of your routine, it's taking right about the 50-second, 1 minute marker, usually a little bit less. It was hitting earlier this year, like in the 45s.
So even like at the Olympia, they cut us down to 45 seconds. If they do that again, I can easily make it in 45 seconds. That won't be an issue. In fact, I'd prefer it.
Yeah, the extra time is, you can see the T-walk there does take about 15 seconds. So I'm really liking it. I think that's really smooth. I think that's your Olympia posing routine. I don't think you really need to change anything going to the Olympia there. It's still your style, which I think is important. You're not trying to be someone you're not, which is super important with posing. If you're trying to find your posing routine style yourself, don't look at someone and say, oh, I want to be like her. Like, just find your own style and then make it work. But yeah, you're not doing anything too much extra, and you're showing your strengths, and you're not doing anything to make you look weaker in it. So that's what I like,
As the judges say, the longer you spend on stage, the more likely it is they can see your flaws. So you just stick to the basics and stick to what looks best on you, and go with the flow, your own flow, not somebody else's. So this is the first call out at the Vancouver Pro for the pre-judging.
Every pro show too, there's always going to be good competition, people we don't know how good they are, where, who's going to come up that day. And it's always a challenge in bikini. It could be anyone's day in bikini anytime. And there's some good physiques here at this show.
Can you freeze this for one moment?
Yeah.
So what I like most here is, again, with the upper body, I feel like in years past, you could tell like I stood out like a sore thumb sort of with the upper body, but now I'm in the mix with my upper body, which is great. And I can still improve it for sure. And I think once I get against like the Olympia level girls, I will have to make a few more improvements when it comes to that, but it's not like, I don't see it as imbalanced as previously. So that's honestly what I'm most proud of this year, is just like the upper body development. And we did this through competing throughout the year too.
Yeah.
So I like it. This is the best feedback I've gotten for years, is just because I'm starting to become more even, you know?
Yeah.
Of course, they're going to give me little things to improve on here and there, but the more important part is I'm becoming more symmetrical, which was such a challenge for me previously.
Yeah. And I think how you're posing too, you're posing very good. The shoulder width is awesome. You can see, look at how round your delts are. And you look at the people next to you, like I'm looking at the more muscular girls that are next to you. So she's a little bit more of a muscular girl, and she's also a very muscular girl. And you look at them next to you, the two most muscular girls on the stage, other than you, and you are right there. You're probably right in the middle of those two, which is great. So definitely in the mix with muscular girls, which is awesome to see. No one's overpowering you and making you look like small, and that's great. And you're showing a nice wide shoulder width. I think one thing we went over at the show is I do think that having your hair off the shoulder there is going to make your shoulders look a little fuller too now, especially in like a darker background. And I think that's the only little thing I'm seeing here. The lats look really good. Look at your V-taper now. See your waistline, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Actually, looking in this picture, you probably have the best V-taper in that front pose. In here, when you see that, like the hourglassing of your shape, I think you actually have it. And it, just because you do have a little bit of a lower lat, but it looks really nice. Some of the other girls have higher lats, but it really tapers really nicely into your lower back, to your waistline. So I think that helps you a little bit here too with the overall shape. And one of the things that I think is one of your biggest attributes is that front glute profile and the roundness of your hamstring. And I do think, now that the judges have said your quad can use a little bit more, I do think because you have such powerful roundness to your glutes and your hamstrings, it can make your quad look a little less bubbly because it's so round in comparison, the hamstring's so round in comparison to the quad, even though your quads are pretty full. But yeah, if you look at the other girls next to you, you probably could use a little more quad sitting next to them.
Oh, totally. And it's like you just said, it's like in previous years, quads were actually something that they didn't mention much of. So yeah, I could definitely work on it, but I think overall, I like my quads for the fact that they'll never get like strided. I know sometimes a lot of girls have issues with their quads, and it's such a deal breaker when it comes to a girl has an amazing bikini physique, but then when you see her walk, like you can see all the separation in her quads. So I actually, funny enough, I put on body fat there, and that's one of my fattier areas, which I guess in bikini is a good thing because you'll never see that separation of my quads. But I do need to put some more muscle on there just to add a little more bubble to it. So
yeah, and it's one of those things that when a girl gets quads that are strided, it's one of those things you can't hide except when you're posing. So when you walk up, when you walk back, when they walk you, you're just going to keep fading and fading and fading because the walk shows everything. And these girls are walking really hard in that front pose too, and you're just seeing the striation. And if you're close and one girl is striding on the walk back and one girl's not, it's pretty much the deal breaker. So that's really good advantage you on body fat distribution there.
Yes.
Right? So this is the first call out, and this show, you did a great showing. Your posing was great. You won with a perfect score. Congrats to you, by the way. You've had 4 shows in a row with a perfect score.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I'm happy with that.
You've accumulated the least amount of points possible in 4 shows. Isn't that crazy?
It's been a wild ride, Adam.
Yes, and especially for bikini. That doesn't happen in bikini very often. It's probably one of the few times it's happened in bikini, at least.
I've been also getting feedback too with the back walk, which I think they're about to do for us, that my back walk I feel like has improved too, personally. And it's funny because what did I do to improve my back walk was basically not to overthink it. I feel like with the back walk, if you start to overthink it, it becomes way too calculated, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to overthink anything. I almost stopped there though, because I thought that's where the line was. So forget that part. But, with that back walk, if you start to overthink it, you can tell in the walk that, oh, she's too calculated. So you want to be nice and tight, but not too calculated. Yeah. And then the front walk's always my favorite.
Yeah, you kill the front walk. You're really good at the front walk. The back walk, I'm really happy with how you've improved on that back walk. It just looks a lot less efforted now too. And you're actually doing more, but it looks with less effort than before, Yeah, you're getting nice hip movement. Your glutes are staying full and dense, and that's actually, I think, where the deal breaker was on this show. I think you're winning with a perfect score anyway. But if there was any comparisons going on, the way that the density and the fullness of your glutes stays full when you're walking versus others, I think that it's really just kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. That's what we talk when we talk about density. That's one of the things we talk about. Her glutes just staying full while in movement is a huge attribute and a huge plus.
That's why they walk us.
Yep. Looking at future shows and what we're gonna look at that back walk. I can't believe that's you. That's so great. You're doing so good with your back walk.
Thanks. I haven't been practicing. I just haven't been overthinking it.
That's what I guess that's what it takes. Whatever. You're selling me on not practicing as much as your back.
Well, don't take after me. I just think in the past I've just been overthinking it. That's why.
Super. It looks really good. Yeah. Good job on that. I'm really happy with that. That is a huge improvement. Now, as far as the actual back pose goes, I do think, you could have been a little bit tighter on this. Yeah. The density and your lines really do carry you in this show. You're really good. You do have a little bit more room in your back. You have a little bit more room in your back on conditioning. I think you can get away with just a little bit more because you do have so much density and your tie-ins are still showing good. But a tiny bit harder I think would have been, it was a perfect score either way, but I think it would have put you just a little bit farther away. But that has a lot to do with also, I think, the water consumption, the time of the day. You did 2 shows in a row, things like that. So I'm really happy that you're going to be having a little bit of a rest going into the O, and I think that we can make you even better from here. A little bit more quad, a little bit more quad, a little bit more conditioning. I think a little bit more shoulder. Take the hair off the shoulder, right? And then that's pretty much it. But not a lot to do. Just very minor tweaks. And posing is like, just leave it there. Posing is great.
Thank you. Finally, I felt like that was my strongest posing all year. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I always say there's always going to be something that you can do better at each show. There's no such thing as a perfect show. We're going to nail every single step, every single transition, everything, but all things considered, this was pretty solid for me. And I don't think I've mentioned before that I almost didn't do the show. I signed up for it, booked my hotel, booked a flight, but after Patriots, I wasn't confident with myself. Although I won with the perfect score at Patriots, I felt not my best. I felt I was too soft, and maybe that was just myself getting into my head too much, but just know that even me, I get in my head. So I almost didn't,
We didn't decide fully till the Tuesday before. And a lot of it was her sleep was an issue too.
Yeah,
so
I wasn't sleeping.
I will say her sleep, her physique it isn't that it gets so much worse, it's that it doesn't get better when you're sleeping. Like if we need to lose 1 pound, if you're sleeping great, no problem. If you're not sleeping great, we have to grind for it, So that's the issue that it kind of becomes. And so it does make things a little difficult when the sleep's inconsistent. As we get closer to a show, generally the sleep is less consistent. So so that was the issue there too. So
yes, and let me put this little disclaimer, guys, because I know I want to get it in the comment section. I appreciate the advice for sleep. Yes, I take melatonin. Yes, believe it or not, I've tried taking naps before, and I've slept with dark curtains. There's no light coming in. I've tried everything under the sun. So I appreciate the suggestions. I'm already seeing a doctor about it. Believe me, I've tried it all. So
we've researched and researched and researched, just trying to get this girl to sleep.
Okay.
Anything outside of I don't even making her stand up too quick so she falls down. We've done.
So I appreciate it. I appreciate it, guys. But believe me, if you named it, I've already tried it.
Yeah. So, with that, I think this is a good time. You took some time off going into this Olympia prep. Now you took 9 days off and you feel rested, and now it's just time to grind and get back in there and lift heavy, lift hard, stay away from cardio for a while, and build some leggy muscles, some shoulder muscles, and good to go.
Do it. Yeah. But more about that in the next video about taking a deload week. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I guess that was it. That was fun.